Hi, welcome to episode number 3 of my Best Year Ever or Bust podcast series. This podcast series is designed to help uplift, motivate, and empower each of you teachers out there, you heroes, to make this your best year ever by helping to make it your students' best year ever in your classroom. And my role in all of this is to help you by providing you with strategies, ideas, new ways of looking at things that may keep you, inspired and uplifted throughout the year to not let anything get you down and to actually have tools you can use to not let anything hold you back from making it the best year ever for your students and for yourself. So it's that all-in 100% or bust attitude that's saying, we're doing this, man. Nothing is going to stop us. So if that's you and that's what you're trying to do, this is the place to be. So thank you for tuning in. I'm Bill Cecil, and I want to thank each of you, seriously, for taking time out of your busy schedules to listen to these episodes. If this is your first time, welcome aboard. I hope you'll stick with us and you'll go back and look at the first 2 episodes because we talk a lot about being a leader with the team to lead as teachers and also wanting to know where you're going to lead your team, your vision, your grand vision. Where's that exciting place you're going to lead your team that you know where you're going, that you can help them know where they're going, and that you're excited about and you're going to get them excited about. So in episode number 2, we talked about shared vision. And for you that have been listening to the first 2 episodes, welcome back. I really appreciate your loyalty to this new podcast. Thank you very much. And I want to thank all of you that are taking time to share this with others and, let them be aware of what's going on. Also, please feel free to give me feedback, what you want to hear more of or what you like or maybe even don't like. Go to my Best Year Ever Facebook page, and under each episode, because I post each episode each week on my Facebook page and my website, bestyearever.net. But on my Best Year Ever Facebook page, go on and leave me some feedback if you want. Let me know what you think. I'd love to interact with you. I might put it back in one of the episodes. I might share out what you shared. So please, I'd love to have some feedback so it feels more like a conversation back and forth between us. But from the bottom of my heart, I truly want to thank you guys for being heroes and doing the work you're doing, but also for taking time to listen to this podcast. Okay, so this is episode number 3, and the name of this episode is called Tapping into the Power of Team, and I'm really excited about this episode because it taps into what I loved most about teaching. Now you would think, well, I know doesn't everybody love teaching because of the kids? And yes, I loved working with my students, but that was a close second, to first. But I had something even bigger that I loved. And so I want to talk about that tonight, what I loved most about teaching, because it's going to tap into what this episode's all about. And also it's going to provide me with an opportunity to share with you why I believe the team approach is so important and powerful for you to tap into as a leader with a team to lead. Also, it's going to give me a chance to talk about what I mentioned last week in the episode about having a higher purpose to your teaching. And it gives me a chance to talk about those things that maybe you never got to talk about, like me as a teacher going through my training to become a teacher or any of my PD sessions or staff meetings. We never had a chance to talk about these things. And I wish we did because this makes what we do even more important. It makes it more exciting. Yes, teaching the curriculum is huge and being able to teach it well and have our kids perform well. I get how important that is. That's why we're called teachers. But as a leader with a team to lead, I want you also to have a higher purpose that you can tap into as you're teaching the curriculum to do even more for your students. Feed your spirit while you're feeding theirs, so to speak. And so this is one of those conversations tonight that we're going to have that's going to tap into the higher purpose of teaching as well. So this is episode number 3, and I title this one, Tapping into the Power of Team. The power of team is really a game changer. Think about this. You're a leader, I've said now, with the team to lead, but we haven't talked about how you build your team. You don't just throw a bunch of students together or a group of anybody together and just call them a team, let alone a winning team. So, tonight we're going to talk about how to start building that team and why the power of team is so important as you build your team, to know what that is so you can tap into it. So this is going to be, I think, a really exciting episode. What I want to do is, before I get started, I want to share with you an Ethiopian proverb that I think best sums up the team approach and the power of team that we're going to be talking about tonight. And this Ethiopian proverb says, "When spider webs unite, they can tie up a lion." I love that. I'm going to read that again. When spider webs unite, they can tie up a lion. Which basically means that when you join forces with others, You become a part of something larger than yourself, and you can accomplish things you would never have been able to do alone. That's the power of team. And that's what I want you to experience, and that's what I want your students to experience every single year that you're a teacher in your classroom. I want this to be something really special where you feel like you're literally working together with others to tie up lions in your classroom. So with that in mind, I want to share with you the first time I experienced the power of team. And believe it or not, I was only 6 or 7. I can't remember exactly. I remember the event. I remember being on my very first winning team, because that's exactly what happened. Which when I traced it back in my mind, because I've always been obsessed with teams. I just have always played sports. I've always, liked to study about winning teams and business and sports teams and social movements, etc. But I wanted to know my own obsession. Where did it begin? Because it's been a big part of my life. So I traced it back one night. I sat down. Actually, I couldn't sleep that night because I was kind of thinking about it and got excited about it. And so what I thought is I'm going to go back and pick up where that obsession started. And I want to share with you that story. But I got to tell you, it's kind of a long story, so I'm going to just give you a very short version in this episode. But here's what I'm going to do. If you want to hear the complete version, which I think is a good listen, worth a listen, I will share that in a bonus episode that will be attached to this episode. So you'll see this episode, and then you'll see the bonus episode tied next to it or attached next to it. So you can tap right onto that. And I'll just call that the babysitter story. But what I want to do is I want to tell you about this winning team. And so this winning team happened when I was 7 years old, and I was living in Wheaton, Illinois. It's a suburb of the Chicago area, and this was back in the early 70s. And so it was a Saturday morning. And by the way, this is not a sports team, but this is a real team. This team was made up of my siblings. I was one of 5. I was the middle child, still am. And the leader of this team was my sister. To give you an age range, she was about probably 13, I would say 12, 13. And 7, 8, 9, yeah. So I was probably 8, I would say. And she was probably somewhere in that range. And then my little brother, the youngest one on our team, Philip, he was about 2 years old, 2 or 3 years old, somewhere in there. And so it was a Saturday morning in the suburbs of Wheaton, like I said, and my sister, the leader of our team, Mickey, she had the grand vision that was able to come in and share that vision with us. And it was amazing because I said in the last episode, it takes about 30 days to form a shared vision. I kid you not. This is probably the one time only. The stars must have been in perfect alignment because she somehow got us to buy into that vision on the very first time she shared it. It was so powerful. It was so well said. It summed up exactly what we wanted to do, the mission we wanted to go on with her. And then she provided us with a doable plan. So she enlisted us all to join in this, which was a miracle when you have 5 kids at varying ages living in a household that we tend to fight more than we got along at that age. And so, but we united immediately. And it was on a Saturday morning. Next thing you know, she had us up in her bedroom. And I was the lookout because if my parents saw us all up in the bedroom on a Saturday morning, instead of watching cartoons downstairs like we were doing, she'd know there was a problem. But when my sister came down there in that family room and we were watching our cartoons, and she looked at us and she said, "Tonight's the night we get rid of Kathy, our babysitter." Instant fire. We all shot our heads up. Ooh, 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 yeah. She said, "Meet me upstairs in 10 minutes and don't tell mom or dad." So that's where we were. We're up in her bedroom, and she was sharing the doable plan, and I was looking out the door to make sure my parents didn't see us, because if they knew we were all up in her room and we weren't summoned to be there, there's something wrong. So they would have caught on to us before we even got started. So I was the lookout. Sure enough, she shared the doable plan, and we practiced it all day. And then by that evening, we executed our plan. Now, I will share what happened in the bonus video, or bonus podcast, I should say. I'm so excited, I can't even talk. When you get to the bonus podcast, I will explain in much more detail what's going on. But I will jump to the very end of the story, jump over the climax, and go to the very end of the story when the babysitter ran out the back door screaming and never came back. And I mean, when she never came back to babysit us again. We were victorious. The Cecil team had triumphed. We had beaten what we now refer to as the babysitter from hell. None of us could have beaten her on our own, but together we were bigger than she was, and she had no match for the Cecil team that night in the Cecil household. And so that was our night to celebrate. We celebrated like champions. We stayed up past our bedtime on a Saturday night watching TV like Bob Newhart, Mary Tyler Moore, the Carol Burnett show. We were eating foods and drinking pop on a Saturday night. We were only allowed to drink soda pop on a Friday night when we were watching the Brady Bunch Partridge Family. This was Saturday night, past our bedtime, watching TV, drinking pop, and eating foods we probably shouldn't have been eating out of the fridge, having a grand time until about 11:30 when the garage door opened and my mom and dad came in, and all hell broke loose. When they found out what had happened and that the babysitter was no longer there, we paid a heavy price for that. That is the fastest, by the way, I've ever seen a winning team disband, but that's okay because we were like within minutes, we were like, she made me, he made me, I didn't want to do this, I was forced to do this, please don't blame me. Blah, blah, blah. We all paid heavily for that. We all got severely punished. I don't think we saw any place outside of our home or any friends for 2 months after that, but it was worth it. And for me, it was worth it because even though we had disbanded as a winning team that night at about 11:30 at night, the seed had already been planted in this 7-year-old's brain that when you join forces with others, you can do things you could never do on your own. And so this seed has stuck with me. The power of team has stuck with me. And from that moment on, I've always been chasing that feeling of being on a winning team. In fact, I played sports, and I was not the best athlete. If you remember, I told you I wore glasses, and I had problems with my eyes. Sometimes I saw double. That doesn't make you a very good baseball player. In fact, I was the guy who sat on the bench the entire game, except for the 2 innings when the coach had to play you. Usually he put me out in right field. My dad didn't like this, but I didn't care. You know why? Because I was still part of a team. I was sitting on the bench with my teammates doing something I loved, the shared mission, playing baseball, being a part of baseball. I was just having fun. But when I'd get up to bat, and this is probably why I was sitting on the bench, I would just swing at anything. Like the ball would start. I was like Machete Boy. The ball would start coming. Even before it got to me, I was swinging the bat frantically, just trying to either hit the 2 balls I saw or just to swing because I knew I was going to strike out because I had low confidence. I knew I couldn't hit the ball in my mind. That was a negative thinking, but that's how I thought back then. And so I was on the bench. But I was part of a team, and I was having a blast. Luckily, by the time I got to 8th grade, soccer found me, or I found it. I'm not sure. But I started playing soccer, and I caught on to it pretty quickly. I was never a great player. I was never super skilled, but I was a kid that loved to run. I could run all day and not give up. And I was a kid not afraid to run into anything or anyone to get the ball and try to put it in the back of the net or give it to somebody who could. So in high school, I did, I played varsity a couple years, and I also played, when I was a sophomore, I was captain of my team. But my senior year in high school, I was captain of my team. And I remember we were at awards night, and my coach was standing up in front of everybody talking about at the end of the ceremony who he thought would go on and play Division I soccer. Now, of course, my nickname was a Little General. He named me that. I was the guy in the field that kind of took control and yelled and told people what to do and cheered people on. And like I said, I was running around like a madman, very intense. And I thought for sure he's going to pick me as one of his captains. I'll be a Division I player for sure. He didn't say my name, and that just I was mortified. I just was devastated. But then instead of getting sad, I got mad. I said, you know what? He doesn't think I can play Division I? Well, then I'll show him. And I didn't even want to go to college. Like I said, I wanted to be a stuntman. I wanted to go to stuntman school, but my parents were like, no, you got to go to college, And so, but when he said I couldn't play Division I soccer, I decided I'm going to college just to play Division I soccer to show him. So Western was a school that gave me first dibs to say, yeah, we'll take you, give you a try. I said, that's the only school I applied to. I went to Western. In fact, I loved being a part of a team so much. That's why I didn't want to give it up in high school. I wanted to play in college, and I wanted to play at the highest level because I know it would just be exciting to do that, and what a challenge. And I remember my senior year, I'd already varsity lettered 3 years, but I was never a star of the team. I was more of a bench guy that would come on and play, and then I was starting to see more playing time each year, but I was still never a star of the team. Going into my senior year, the spring before our fall season, my coach pulled me aside and he said, hey, Bill, I think I'm going to let you go for younger players. I got to build for the future. You've been great, though. I'm so happy for you and all the work you've done for us, so thank you very much. And I said, Coach, you can't do this. You can't do this. Please give me another try. Bill, you've done all you can do. You're the hardest working guy I know. I don't expect anymore. You've given me everything you got. I said, no, Coach, I'll find more. I'll find a way. This was my best year ever or bust moment in my mind. I'm like, no, Coach, I will find a way. day because I want to be a part of I want to tap into the power of team one more year. I want to finish this out and get 4 varsity letters. So he said, look, here's what I'll do. I'll give you a chance, but I'll give you a week when you come back, but no promises. Okay, and at the end of the week, we'll talk. Sure enough, I come back, and he pulls me into the locker room a week later, and I'm like, oh boy, this is it. I think he's going to let me go. I got that feeling. And I go in his office, and he says, I got to tell you something, Bill. I'm shocked. I can't believe you found another level to take it to, but you know what? I'm so impressed. I'm going to give you a partial scholarship, and I'm going to make you one of the co-captains. And that was like one of my most, I think, proud moments, especially as an athlete, but just in life in general, that you can work hard and make something happen. And it reminded me, and it also as a teacher, don't ever let anybody tell you what you can or cannot do or what's in your heart. If you want to make it happen, you'll find a way. That's the or bust attitude. So it's not surprising that when I became a teacher, I started to use the team approach in my classroom without even realizing it. I was just doing it. But what I realized about 16 years into my teaching career was that what I loved most about teaching, because people would always ask you that as a teacher, what do you love most about teaching? Oh, you're a teacher. What do you love most about teaching? And most teachers, obviously, are going to say kids because that's the number one answer and the correct answer. But I have to say, for me, it was like a close second. Kids were a close second. I loved my kids. I loved working with them. But there was something I loved more. And that's when it dawned on me. What I love most about teaching is that every year I get to create, lead, and be a member of a winning team. I don't get to pick my teams, but I get to build my teams. And every year my teams come in at a different level. But no matter what level they come in, I'm going to take them to a higher level throughout the year. Every day I'm coming in, finding a way to move them up a little bit, to improve, to get to a higher level. So every team was different, and every team came in at a different place, and every team ended at a different place, but always higher. To me, that was always my best year ever. So this was definitely something I wanted to focus on, and I think you should focus on it too, because it really gave me purpose every single day I came into my classroom. So what I want to do is I want to share with you a couple reasons why I believe that the best year ever approach, but the team approach, tapping into the team of power, is so important, and why I hope you'll adopt that in your classroom and really strive to help yourself and your students tap into the power of team every year in your classroom. And the first one is that I think it's vital to help your students to learn how to do this, to work as a team, to work with others. Because if you think about it in life, you're never really going to achieve anything of great success in your life. At least I look back in my life and think of all the things I've achieved. I've never done any of those totally by myself. Yes, sometimes I was working alone, but I had to find somebody along the way to keep me going, or to help me do something, or get through a rough spot, or to give me advice, or to something. But I never could do any of these things alone. And many times I've worked on teams. When I was working, like even as a leader in the building, or working to help in committees, you're a part of a team. So even in my classroom, I was a team, but there's always looking at things through that prism of looking for the team. So this is a great thing you want to teach your kids early on in life, so they can excel in school and in sports and hobbies that they have maybe around school, but then also as they become an adult. I can't tell you how many of my students still contact me and we talk, and they tell me about the things they learned in 5th grade, stick with them, and have made them successful in their business world or their life in general. And so I think a big part of this is to have your kids learn this early on. Here's a good example. Michael Jordan. This is the one I would tell my kids about. Michael Jordan, to me, is one of the greatest basketball players, NBA basketball players of all time. He won 6 NBA championships. This guy was a machine. And yet, Michael Jordan could not have won any of those NBA championships without his teammates, his coaches, his trainers, fans, and many others. So this is a great example that somebody who you think is the best, the superstar, doesn't need anybody's help. He does it all on his own. No. In fact, his coach, the first time around when they won their first championship, told him, you got to be a better teammate and play as a team than trying to do it all yourself. Because if you have a bad night, none of us are going to do very well. So we have to learn how to, and it's going to help you if you play as a team, because they have to start marking up on your teammates that are scoring. So it's not always looking for you to have the ball and to do all the work. So he made that adjustment. He was willing to sacrifice what he felt was his superstardom to say, yeah, I'll pull back a little bit and be a better team player. And it helped him win 6 NBA championships, which he's very proud of that he did that. So that's number one. I think it's vital for your students to know how to be a good team player and to tap into the power of team. I'm going to go back to this quote that I like. When spider webs unite, they can tie up a lion. I love that proverb, Ethiopian proverb. I want you to be able to tie up many lions in your classroom this year. And that's what this whole approach is all about, right? Is that when you work with others, you can tie up lions. You can do things bigger than yourself. The second reason I really think this is important, I want you to tap into the power of team, because I believe people, first I was going to say, I think people want that. I'm going to scratch that. I believe people need that. People need to feel that they are a part of something or belong to something larger than themselves, including your students. So I'll give you a good example. When I was teaching, I was doing a in-service back in about 2005 or so with the state police that were going into schools. They had asked me to come and help them with some of my strategies of how to work with the kids and build team and all that stuff, and how to manage them to keep them all engaged. And what was funny was they told me they were more nervous going into the schools for an hour than they were working in the streets as police officers, which I thought was I still do. I think that's funny. But you think about it, here's these heroes, but they looked up to us as being heroes for having the courage to do what we do. And so it's just funny. Everybody has their comfort zones. But anyways, I was doing this workshop with them. And the first time I was in there, they kind of intimidated me because they're big people and they wear their bulletproof vests under their uniform. So they look like Iron Man. They're all sitting there with these big puffed out chests and looking tough. Even the women, they're just all, And at first I'm thinking, oh boy, this is going to be a tough crowd. By day 2, at the end of the day, we had really gotten close to each other. Once they know you're the real deal, man, they will bond with you. You're in. And so they were talking to me during a break, and they were saying, Bill, we want to share something with you. You've been so good with us. You've helped us a lot. We want to give you something you can use and that you can share with other teachers when you go out and speak. And I said, yeah, I'd love it. What is it? They said, we got a stat we want to share with you. I said, yeah, please do. So what they told me was that in 1965, the average amount of time that parents would interact with their kids during a week, engaged, not in the house doing something else, but engaged with their student or with their kids, was 30 hours a week. In 1965, 30 hours a week. By the year 2000, it had dropped down to 38 minutes a week. 30 hours to 38 minutes. And that was the year 2000. Think about that. And this was even before the internet or parents had all these devices that they could tap into and kids could tap into when they're at home. Computers, phones, laptops, video games. I mean, there's all these new distractions that have come along since 2000, and I'm worried that number could be way lower than 38 minutes a week. It reminds me of this story when I was on Mackinac Island. And we were at a restaurant called the Pink Pony, and we were sitting out on the patio overlooking the harbor. My wife and I went there for our anniversary. We were having the time of our life. We're sitting there taking it all in. And there was a table next to us with a mom and dad and 2 girls that looked like high school, middle school students, and they were all on their phones. And I kid you not, the entire meal, from the time they, sat down to the time they ordered, to the time they got their food and time they left, they never had a conversation other than when the food arrived, and then they went right back to their phones. No conversation the entire meal. This is when I knew that things might be getting worse with the amount of time that parents and kids are going to be interacting together at home. And so what I'm worried about is that sometimes I worry that we're raising a society of lost souls. I had a DARE officer come into my room in the mid-90s, and the DARE program was the Drug Awareness Resistance Education Program. And he was talking to my kids about the violence part of the program, about resisting violence. And he was talking about the gang epidemic that he said was going on around the country. And so he was talking to them about gang violence. And he was telling them about how kids joined the gangs. And he said what happens is they get a circle of gang members, and they bring in the initiate, the person that wants to be in the gang. It could be a girl, boy. It could be a little kid, elementary level, all the way up to high school, even possibly a young adult. And what they would do is, for 10 minutes, they would beat the person into the gang. Literally, they'd beat them into the gang. They could spit on them, hit them, kick them, slap them, yell obscenities at them, whatever they wanted to do. And the person in the middle could not fight back or resist in any way. They just had to take it for 10 minutes. And at the end of 10 minutes, if they could walk out, crawl out, somehow get out of that circle unassisted, they were considered in. They were in the gang. And once they were in, I mean, they were treated like royalty by their own team member, but they still ran the risk of violence because sometimes they would turn on each other or other gangs were trying to hurt them. So they were still in a very unhealthy environment, but they felt a part of something larger than themselves. And so when my dare officer was telling the kids this, I said, wait a minute, stop. This is too hard to believe. I can't believe any kid in their right mind would get in that circle. Why? Why would they do it? And he said, oh, Bill, without even hesitating, he said, they want to belong to something larger than themselves. They want to feel a part of something. They want to feel connected. So they're willing to get into that circle. And he said millions of kids are willing to get into that circle all over the country. And I've seen it firsthand here in Lansing myself. Kids are willing to get in that circle. I started to think, we're not just a society of maybe raising a society of lost souls, but we're raising a society of lonely, desperate lost souls. They're so desperate to want to belong to something that they're willing to get into that. This really concerns me. And I know, because I've read this over and over and over in recent articles because I'm obsessed with this. This is what I study. That many of our kids, and I'm talking about young kids to teenagers to young adults, are struggling with physical and mental health concerns. And many are struggling academically in school because of this loneliness or this depression or anxiety that they're feeling. This really concerns me. In fact, I found a few quotes that I want to share with you or things from articles that I want to share with you just to drive this point home. So this isn't just my thinking. These are things that I've been looking for online. In fact, I'll try to post these links on my Best You Ever Facebook page under this episode. So if you want to check out these articles. One of the things I read in one of the articles said, I would assume that with the rise of the internet and social media platforms, people are feeling more connected. But emerging research suggests that we are now facing a global loneliness epidemic among young people. So when I read that, I had to start searching, Googling for what's the percentage of lonely people, young people in our U.S. society. And I found this. More than 80% of young people under 18 in the U.S. report feeling lonely. And then I'd heard things about suicides numbers are up for teens and young children and, just disturbing stats like that. And I found one that said the leading cause of death for children and teens is firearm-related injuries, including death by homicide, suicide, and accidents. So the last piece I found, and these are negative, and I don't usually dwell on negatives, but we got to face the problems if we're going to fix them, right? We can't ignore them. We can't put our head in the sand. So any and all challenges, best you ever bust. We take on any and all challenges. So this is me now. This is how I operate. I will identify what the problem is, and then I will set the target. So here's something I read that gave me hope. And I believe that this is something every teacher or hero can do something about. And so this is why I'm sharing this with you, all of this with you. This is the important part I want you to remember. I read this. Here's where I have hope. Evidence suggests that creating positive social classroom environments where teachers and classmates' support are available is crucial in combating youth loneliness. I'm going to read that again. Evidence suggests that creating positive social classroom environments where teachers and classmates' support are available is crucial in combating youth loneliness. The CDC actually has a word for that. It's called school connectedness. They've done a study back in 2019 where they were talking about how to get focus on school connectedness to get kids to feel like their teachers and peers care about them as people and care about them as learners at school, that support them, that they do better, that they have less stress, less anxiety, they perform better. And so they're trying to get this message out, but then other things got in the way, and I think their messaging got lost somewhere in there. But it didn't get lost on me. I've been focused on this way before I heard them talking about it. I've been sharing this stuff out since the year 2000. And so I truly believe that this is the time. This is the time to make this happen. This is the time to say, yes, this is important. This is important because this not only will help them academically, this will help them as people to have a better life. And we really got to focus on this. So I want each of you to realize that you have an awesome opportunity, if not a responsibility, to help provide this opportunity to tap into the power of team for your students. Which brings me to my last point. As I've said, each of you are leaders with a team to lead. You must remember every day you step into your classroom, no matter what challenges you're dealing with, I hope you will maintain your best year ever or bust mindset and allow your team of students to feel they are a part of something special and they actually belong. They're connected, someplace safe and positive to be every day, instead of like the gang members out on the street dealing with places that aren't so positive and that are very dangerous. You're providing a positive, safe learning environment for these kids to feel a part of something larger than themselves and to tap in the power of team and to do amazing things in their life. Because like the quote says, when spider webs unite, they can tie up a lion. I got to tell you, I've had many great opportunities. Of what I love most about teaching is that I get to create, lead, and be a member of a team, because I know if I do that, we get to tie up many lions, and we did throughout my career. I got to help tie up lions with my team, the lion of loneliness. We got to tie up the lion of bullying. We got to tie up the lion of fixed mindsets that hold kids back, thinking that they're born only so smart or they're born dumb and they can never do anything about that, like I did when I was a kid. We've tied up lions of self-doubt that were holding kids back from even trying, of holding their head up in class and paying attention and giving it a shot. We tied those up and took it even a step further, and we tied up the lion of taking risk, of being afraid to take risks, and even more afraid to make mistakes in front of their peers. In fact, we not only tied up those lions, but we got to celebrate taking risks and making mistakes and learning from our mistakes for many years in my classroom. And I think one of my favorite lines that we also got to tie up was that the I can't lion that holds so many people back from reaching their potential in life because they don't even try. They've given up even before they start. And that's not the best year ever mentality. That's not the mindset, the best year ever or bust mentality that you're going to help to teach your kids and that I got to teach my kids. So you can tie up many lions in your classroom, and they can tie up many lions in the classroom with you, but also in their life. So I hope this has been helpful. Next time we meet, episode 4, I'm going to talk more about how to build your winning team, because it's one thing to say team, you got to tap into the power of team, but you got to first know how to build your team, because it's a mistake to think you're just going to go in and call your team a team and they're going to perform like a team, let alone a winning team. So we're going to tie up that lion in episode number 4. So between now and then, please remember, best year ever. You have the power to make it happen.